Joining me now from Ankara is the senior advisor to the Turkish President, Gulnur Aybet. Thank you so much for joining us. Let's start off with, where is the operation at right now and how long is it expected to take?
Well, you know, when we talk about the actual objectives of the operation, it's actually to clear the presence of the terrorists YPG, but Daesh elements, which are also in Afrin as well, to secure Turkey's borders so that terrorist attacks from this region adjacent to the border don't take place against the southern provinces, which they have been doing, and also to prevent the PKK terrorists from using this as a launch pad to infiltrate into those border areas and then launch attacks within Turkey, as they've been doing. So, you know, that's the main objective. The other objective is also to prevent the corridor, a terror corridor, from emerging next to this very long border that we have with Syria, but also to bring a sense of stability and safety to the local population, which have been subjugated under the local control of this terrorist group. And, you know, you only have to look at certain reports, international reports as well, as to the way this group, the PYD, which is an affiliate of the terrorist PKK, have been persecuting anybody in those regions that they control that don't agree with them, forcing people out of their homes, and not just against the local Arab population, but also Kurds. So the operation will last for as long as it takes to eradicate this threat and to see a return of some semblance of stability and security along the border of Turkey.
Okay, let's move on. We know then what the objectives are. Is Turkey taking on the concerns of its international allies? For example, the US and various partners in the EU. They've asked that this operation be limited in scope and duration, and that Turkey take the utmost care and exercise restraint. Is Ankara taking those concerns on board?
Ankara has been very diligent in the diplomatic efforts it's made in informing its allies and the international community prior and during the operation. So the foreign minister had one-to-one calls with various allied foreign ministers. Others were notified through ambassadors being called to briefings in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and also written notifications were made to international organizations such as the UN as well as the Islamic Conference organization. So Turkey has been informing all parties, regional and global, about the operation. That's been undertaken in a very diligent diplomatic transparency. For individual spokespersons of organizations or countries to voice their concerns at this stage, you know, they are being informed as the operation proceeds. But I've already mentioned and outlined to you the absolute objectives, which are very clear.
They are very clear.
And this operation will take place until those objectives have been met.
Of course.
Yeah.
And your point about transparency has been echoed by Turkey's allies, even as the concerns about exercising restraint, even as those points are made, rather. Let's move on, though. The US sees the YPG as one of its most effective partners in the fight against Daesh. Obviously, you know, for Turkey, for all international partners, the PKK is a terror group, and Turkey sees the YPG as an offshoot of that. Can you, however, concede that the YPG terror group has been effective in fighting Daesh up until this point?
We've always told our American allies that you can't really fight one terrorist organization with another terrorist organization. If you arm a terrorist organization to get rid of another one on the ground, eventually that armed group is going to backfire against you because they're terrorists. So we've always said that there's an absolute folly in doing this. And we've asked them time and time again to work with us and the Free Syrian Army, and that we're quite capable of, Turkey, look at under Euphrates Shield, they've cleared an enormously large area from Daesh, and they've been more effective in the fight against Daesh than any other coalition member doing this all by themselves. So, Turkey has proven in Euphrates Shield their ability to fight Daesh. I don't think it was necessary for the United States, as they claim, to be partnering with a so-called terrorist, with a so-called partnering with a terrorist organization in this respect, because if you give arms to a terrorist organization, it's going to backfire against you. So I don't think it's been that effective either, because we've already seen footage, I might add, from the BBC that thousands of these Daesh fighters were actually aided and abetted by the YPG, or the so-called SDF, to be evacuated from Raqqa. So if it was that effective, why were they aiding and abetting the evacuation of these Daesh terrorists from Raqqa? So there's also a speculation as to how effective they have been in that sense.
The success of Operation Euphrates Shield is very clear. I mean, I myself have been to Jarablus recently and seen firsthand, and people are returning there. It's a very different situation than it was a few years ago there. But in terms of, you're saying the US cannot fight one terror group with another terror group, has Turkey not been allowing that to happen, essentially by not stepping in to fight the YPG up until this point? Because the YPG has been fighting Daesh up until this point, and it's only now that Turkey has decided to intervene.
No, Turkey has been watching the border issue very carefully, and it's got to the point where an intervention was absolutely necessary in Afrin, in that region at this point, to clear the YPG from that area. Because as the war is coming to an end game, there's a lot of last-minute moves and land grabbing, and the terrorist groups trying to legitimize themselves on the ground. And I think it was the right time for them to move in. But Turkey has been, with the Euphrates Shield, was very much concentrated on the battle against Daesh. And they have been, doing hot pursuits as well as shelling from the border areas to the YPG presences across the border. So it's not like they haven't intervened before. But no, this is a large-scale intervention that was necessary at this point to secure the border. And I might add, you mentioned about some of the international community talking about restraint. I mean, this operation is only against the terrorist factions which are in that area. That includes the YPG as well as Daesh. It's not directed against the civilian population. And the Turkish armed forces are taking utmost care to avoid collateral damage. And in fact, the Turkish Red Crescent is poised in Aziz to actually give aid and shelter to those that are being evacuated. But the PYD are not allowing people, civilians, to leave those areas.
Yes,
they're actually not helping in this respect. And
we have been getting those reports as well here. Thank you so much for that.
Yes.
Really great to speak to you. That's Gulnur Aybet,
Yes,
Senior Advisor
yes.
to the Turkish President. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.